documenting jobs manually sucks. It's messy, time-consuming, and let's be honest, mistakes happen. I was counting electrical outlets one by one. I was getting lost in my notes, and I thought there's gotta be an easier way to do all this. That frustration led to an app that takes all the headaches out of measuring and planning spaces, right? It all started with that simple idea, and now it's changing how people work everywhere. What was the beginning of it all for me? I basically started almost to the day, pretty much 12 years ago as a project manager in my family business back in Germany. And it was kind of me coming fresh from kind of school, being introduced to the business. I was shadowing a project manager and pretty much doing all the tasks that maybe no one else wanted to do. So I was drawing sketches, I was taking pictures, I was kind of doing takeoffs, I was doing multiple site visits. I was the one who had to go back to a site when we were missing any type of information or when we had to check in on some of the subcontractors. So that was me 2013 in Berlin. We are doing a lot of work in Berlin, biggest housing market in Germany, lots of rehab projects, renovations, but also restoration projects. That was me almost 12 years ago, roaming around Berlin, trying to make sense of how can I as a project manager kind of create enough headspace to actually do my project management work. And to this regard, what was really bogging me down? First of all, anyone who has seen my writing can imagine how I draw, and that was not something that I thought was great. So manually going into a apartment, into a building, into a house, and drawing a sketch, measuring it, and then trying to transfer this into something that I can use for my quote, for my estimate. That was not something I enjoyed, and that was also not something I thought was pretty much a good way to do it. So very early on, I toyed around using at the time a GoPro camera. And why GoPro camera? Pretty much those were the cheapest wide-angle devices that I could use, and also I could instantly hook it up to my phone or tablet. And the thought process early on was, okay, if I take pictures of all of the walls of an apartment, I can then try and somehow electronically, digitally on my computer capture the information. So I wouldn't have to measure each individual window. I wouldn't have to run around the apartment counting the plugs. I could then just basically do this on my device. So that was my early thinking in me coming to this job, really not being fond of hand-drawn sketches and measuring, towards how can I find a solution that helps me use this in a, let's say, modern way, okay? Count me as a kind of, it was my playfulness, it was my gadget enthusiasm, but I really wanted to kind of work on my computer. Why do I think it's needed? I mentioned just, I thought it was tedious to draw, right? I thought it was tedious to measure, but I also thought it was really tedious to then use these inputs to come up with kind of a takeoff and input that into an Excel spreadsheet basically to get my quote. And I disliked the individual steps, but I also disliked the fact that it is different tools, different setups, different kind of work environments I needed to do this. So I had my pen and paper on site. I brought this to the office there I sat in front of my desktop computer at the time, where I used Excel to create a quote, right? This separation of steps and kind of the dislocation of this really bugged me. And I thought, well, why can't I do everything at once? Everything kind of like supported by my devices. And that was really what was driving me. Why do I prefer an iPad to anything else that was before there? I thought it was really kind of practical to use, right? It had a sturdiness, especially like this very first generation, which I started to use, that had a sturdiness. It felt like the right tool for the job, kind of being on the run all of the time. So this was really also the thinking, okay, why can I not bring the stuff that I had to do in the office, like pumping out my estimate, also at the point in time, I actually ran around with a digital camera. Then I connected this to the computer, uploaded the photos, processed the photos for my kind of inspection report. So I thought, why can't I kind of put all that together into my one device, into my iPad? I mean, how did we come about what we have in our hands today? I mean, coming back a little bit, so early on I said I was toying with the GoPro, but then I also was looking into what type of laser measuring devices are out there. So I basically then came equipped with a tripod, with my GoPro, with my laser measuring devices, and try to kind of enhance that process and at least kind of make it more digital faster, right? But that didn't really satisfy my need for, okay, I want to have everything in one device. And then that was the point where, okay, what if you could actually bring that two steps that I was talking about, kind of the measuring and the taking pictures, into your device? So I think early feedback was great. I mean, it was especially back at the time, super novel approach. It made use of kind of this new technology. Apple has supported us ever since, which is great. And the users, I mean, the problem I'm describing, it's not out of thin air, right? That's everyone in the field experiencing this every day. And it's a variety of industries experiencing this. So in the very early days, we had anything from crime scene investigation to real estate to whatever. There are many industries out there that have a particular need for tools and devices or tools like this. And we had kind of like a flurry of product feedback. You have carpet installation companies and so on and so forth. So there was really a breadth of usage that was quite quickly. But then again, I mean, it was a very particular process to reach your goal, right? You really should have the need for it to do it. And many people had, but at the same time, I mean, it's not a game at that point. It's really a tool for you to kind of like reach an end. Those are the conversations I enjoy the most, right? Whenever I'm on a trade show or talking to a customer, kind of them telling me their troubles, right? And like I see it, I've been there, and then kind of deconstructing and layering what else we can solve. That is kind of my biggest joy. If they say, yeah, you know, we need kind of sketches from the field. Yeah, okay, you can do that. Well, but we also need elevations. Okay, yes, you can also have your elevations. Oh, wow, okay, I didn't know that. And we need to understand kind of what type of door it is. Yeah, okay, you can also do that. And we want to do pictures. Okay, yes, you can do this, and so on and so on. I mean, this has been the journey we've been up to, and this is really the type of dialogue I enjoy. And I mean, we are not finished. Maybe we will never finish, but that is really this ongoing discussion with the users and what their problems are and what they're facing. This is what drives us. And we are, I think, on a good way to solve a sizable chunk of the issues that you encounter. Do we always want more? Sure. Are customers never satisfied? Also sure. I mean, what are the customer use cases that I like a lot? Or also customer and user use cases. I was talking earlier about kind of bridging the gap between field and office. And I think magicplan is really a great tool to level the information needs. And what is the prime example I like to tell there? I mean, what are the use cases of the general public of magicplan? There are basically two use cases. One is you move house and you want to kind of prepare for your move or change your furniture or change your layout, and you play around with this. It's great. I think it can do that. But the other one is, which I like better, people who are about to go into a renovation project. And they say, hey, we have used magicplan because we were planning our extension. And on the basis of magicplan, we could talk to the contractor. And that is really what we are trying to achieve, right? A renovation project, a restoration case, those are kind of like complex problems in a way. There are so many different elements that you need to talk to, that you need to keep track of. And it's a constant juggle of priorities and things not to forget. And magicplan is giving you some structure and overview and clarity of what the scope of the project is, what needs to be kind of put in, kept in mind. And that is where I think it's the real value. Before that, it was either in people's heads or in my mind, like lengthy documents, forms that are sometimes not easy to grasp instantly, and really making it possible to quickly come on the same page, maybe quite literally if you print out your report, come on the same page of understanding a layout, understanding what's needed is one of the key values that we see. And that is also, I mean, what we see now as our biggest focus and industry, because it creates exactly this between a homeowner who has a loss, a restoration company who needs to deal with that, and the insurance company who needs to quickly understand, qualify, and then basically settle that claim, settle that loss, pay for it, right? You need to make sure that all of those parties can agree on something. And that is what we are trying to do. And we are trying to do this by providing the floor plan, by providing the sketch, by providing the measurements, by providing a detailed documentation, by providing an estimate that is tied directly to, I mean, what's needed in the field. So this is, coming back to where I came from, creating a good level of understanding of what's needed between sometimes complete laymen and women, right? People doing their renovation work, to the expert doing the job. That is, I think, the beauty of what we can achieve, and this in a accessible way. And I just came off the discussion making information accessible, understandable to people. And I think here we started with magicplan early on. It was a simple kind of sketch. Okay, you had your sketch, you had your measurements, you could attach some pictures. Some people for some people that was not sufficient. So because of technology, because of whatever, we could kind of like, okay, it's not just a sketch, it's the full 3D, right? So for someone who has less of a kind of spatial understanding, 3D really helped, right? We moved from just, okay, looking at the floor plan to the original idea I talked about it was the GoPros. Okay, I need to understand my walls. I need to understand my surroundings. So 2D to 3D. Then sometimes it was not sufficient to say, okay, I have this plan and I have some pictures. So there we moved on to panoramic views. We introduced the capabilities because of popular demand of adding 360 images. That is really helpful for some people to grasp and understand the scene. This is an area that is going to kind of develop massively going forward. So that was one additional step that we brought to. And in terms of how it was able to use the devices, I mean, the devices in themselves, they got much better. They actually now have laser measuring devices included, right? The LiDAR. It's nothing else than what you had in your laser measuring device previously, but before then it was two separate tools. Then again, they were combined into one device. So that really enhanced kind of the accuracy. It enhanced again the ease of use, accessibility of the product. But it also allowed for kind of deeper use of AI in terms of kind of image recognition, computer vision, understanding, okay, you don't need to tell us this is a window, we understand this is a window. You don't need to tell us this is a plug, we understand this is a plug. So all of this, which was kind of manual entry before, it now becomes much more automated, much more precise, and much more accessible. And that is kind of the journey that it's going to continue for quite some time. I think it was as early as 2017, we really had the clear indication, okay, there is something massive happening in terms of technology. And I think we are seeing it right now with the added capabilities of AI more in the direction of speech. I think vision was good for quite some time. Speech really accelerated the past 2 years. And what's the benefit of that? I think if you're on site, my natural way is kind of you walk through a job and you see the situation and you describe what you see, and that basically is the essence of that job. So on this one, we have now added voice capability so that you can basically do a show and tell of the job site, and we then structure everything for you. Now you have the sketch, you have the measurements, you have the pictures, but you also already have the description of what you observed, right? You're the person on site who has the most understanding, or who has the kind of presence there. So who better than you to show and tell what you're observing? And we can use this to, again, give you a structured form to this, to bring that information to everyone else involved in the project who might not be with you on site. But again, in a form that you are then quickly understanding of what's the situation. You don't need to filter through stuff. That is what the system is doing. You have kind of your clear picture the moment you look at it. Look, we've all been there. I've been there. Wasting hours, measuring, double checking, running back and forth, and hoping we don't miss anything. That's why we built magicplan. It just makes the job easier, plain and simple. Try it out and see how much time you get back on your next project.